Hey everybody, we're back and we're talking about dance today. We've talked a little bit about some of these people before, but I wanted to focus on dance in a broader context here, get a little bit deeper into it, and enhance your knowledge, especially since it's not something you tend to talk about in an English class. As I mentioned a few exciting episodes ago, one of Agnes de Mille's innovations, her major innovation, is dance as central to story and character. And you'll remember we watched both the Many a New Day scene from Oklahoma and the Oklahoma Dream Ballet. There's also the Carousel Ballet. There's all kinds of interweaving of modern dance, ballet, and character. Um, and DeMille, I think, would have innovated even further, but she was very committed to ballet as kind of the central dance upon which things would be based. However, later choreographers like Michael Kidd, and this is Little Abner was one of the shows he directed. It was made into a film, and I mean, it's not necessarily something we see as often or study as often as a musical today. But the Sadie Hawkins Day number, in which women chase men, um, is really worth watching, at least parts of it. The choreography of chasing and dancing and running at the same time, where it's all kind of bodies are kind of doing all of those things, where it looks really deliberate and it's practical and it's linked to characters. That's something that was very new at the time. They're also using the landscape, the hills that they're filming in, etc. We talked a bit about Jerome Robbins, especially when it came to the link between dance and character in West Side Story. But I wanted to add a little bit more here, also based on the readings, that Robbins helped shift shows by suggesting changes in tone, changes in music. And one example is the show A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, which also had lyrics by Stephen Sondheim. So, have a sip of your beverage for that one. And instead of starting it with Love is in the Air, they started the film with a number called Comedy Tonight, which you probably will recognize when you listen to it, just to make sure people knew it wasn't going to be like a slow love story, or it wasn't going to be a drama, signaling clearly that this was comedy. Although obviously something called A Funny Thing happened on the Way to the Forum should really clue people in, but people don't always pay attention. So here's Fosse again. Welcome back, Bob Fosse. You're our buddy. Use of new angles for the body is a big one. Use of props, especially hats. This dude loves a hat. And when you watch Pippin, there's a crown dance that is sort of similar to the way one would dance with a hat, and Chita Rivera looks amazing doing that. But also inspiration of burlesque and eroticism on dance. When you see the dances in even West Side Story, even some of the dance in Oklahoma, if we go back to DeMille, it's not sexy. Sometimes it's romantic. But finding a way to do sexy kinds of dances that were not obscene was difficult to do, and also to have it be unique and interesting choreography with a baseline level of difficulty. One of the best ways to understand dance is to try and copy it or try and learn it. obviously it would be really ableist for me to say, hi, dance like this, and I don't want anyone to end up in the hospital. But if you are so inclined, just trying to see how these dancers move their bodies in this way can be very instructive. So there's 6 signature Fosse moves on this one. You're going to learn how to audition for Chicago in a couple of slides, so get ready for that. One of the early signature numbers, if you remember, we talked a little bit about the Pajama Game as a show that was also about kind of union labor. One of the signature numbers where he started to develop his technique as a choreographer was called Steam Heat, and you'll be able to kind of see where he's going to be going with dance with that. Another early work I would encourage you to take a look at if you're interested is Sweet Charity. Big Spender is a scene where, and they talk about this in Fosse Verdon, where there's like a ballet bar almost, and the sex workers who work with Charity are all kind of lined up, but they're not dancing in tandem. They're just kind of, each one has her own moves and each one has her own dance, and they all kind of work together, but it's a more complicated choreography than that. So enjoy watching that. I watched the whole film recently, and it's pretty interesting. If you've ever heard about or thought about that manic pixie dream girl, which is a type people talk about as, the sort of happy dream girl whose job it is to come along and lift up a guy out of the dumps or whatever, and make his life better. Sweet Charity is surprisingly like that. She just sort of goes around like, lifting men up from the brink, and but it doesn't work out as well for her as you would want. It's a very sweet film, but it's also a very sad film. But Shirley MacLaine is lovely in it, and it's definitely worth trying. Cabaret. We talked about Cabaret in the metaphor section of the class, but in terms of dance, Mein Herr deserves its own shout out, especially as a Fosse signature number. And part of it is a very difficult number. I mean, if you stand up and you put a leg on the chair and you leave your other leg leaning really, really far back, and you're balancing and you're in heels and you're sort of bouncing up and down, like, it's not going to necessarily look elegant. But in this case, it's not just about that. There are these wonderful little moments where you see, the music has a little pause, and Liza Minnelli will just move her foot in a circle. Her fingers will wave at the right time. She can stay absolutely still at a particular angle, and so can the dancers who surround her, which redirects your attention to the singer. All of these things are perfect in their way. In terms of performing Sally Bowles as a character, sometimes people criticized the film for the fact that Liza Minnelli was simply too good to be in this kind of dodgy cabaret and struggling with money all the time. Like, in real life, that singer and actress would have been swept up pretty quickly. But I mean, audiences for films are different from audiences for plays. In a film, you do have to be showing people really high quality choreography or they might not get it. In a play, you can communicate a little bit more clearly that the character isn't supposed to be the most talented person in the world. If you want to see a talented actress playing Sally as a not super talented Sally. Watch Jane Horrocks. That she was in the version that had Ellen Cumming in it. Um, and check out her different interpretation of Sally's character. Excuse me, coughing there. All right, now we're gonna get to Ben Vereen, who's amazing. Um, Probably the best interpreter of Fosse's vision, or at least tied with Gwen Verdon for, brilliance in dance. Um, he played the leading player in Pippin. He was also in Hair on Broadway. I think he was in the original cast. But in terms of being able to show his dancing skills, Pippin really gives us a chance to see what he can do. It tells a story. It's a historical piece by Stephen Schwartz. It tells the story of Charlemagne's son Pepin and his rise to power. And there's a parallel narrative about war and power, in contemporary culture. Again, this is during the Vietnam War. It's everywhere, that social criticism. And the leading player is kind of directing that. So this first link here is in a really long extended number called Glory. Watch Vereen's dance, how he's able to move his body, the way that muscle memory is almost retrained in very non-intuitive directions. And also the work with the hat, the work with the cane is brilliant as well. In particular, ways that Fosse's work can be scaled down and brought very close to the body. It's called the Manson Trio. It's the leading player and a dancer on either side, so hence the trio. And they have these very, very small, synchronized, tightly controlled movements together. That's absolutely mesmerizing to watch. And finally, this last link is, and no shade to William Catt as Pippin. He did his best. But, one of them was more of, trying to be an actor and a singer and trying to dance. And the other is like this, just stratospherically incredible dancer. So when you watch him next to William Catt, you can kind of see some of that. And that's the song On the Right Track that's linked below. Here is Chicago. We can learn how to audition for Chicago. So here are some dance instructions, even if this is not something you are at all capable of. Look at the different elements of the routine. Look at how many things are put together. What are you noticing more when you slow it down? And also, how would this audition separate out better dancers from less skilled dancers? Often what people test you on in a dance audition is going to be how quickly you can pick up the choreography. Here is something that is already provided as choreography, and you're supposed to take it home and practice it. That's a really interesting choice, and it makes you wonder kind of what separates the wheat from the chaff. And finally, in this exciting episode, speaking of auditions, a chorus line is one that really helps to decenter the musical itself as entertainment. It's focusing on auditions for smaller parts, people you might not have even noticed in a musical. And these are aspiring actors who have dreams themselves, even if their dream is relatively small, like to get a gig on a show and be able to, get work every day. And it focuses on their stories as individuals, shows that pursuing art can have kind of a dark or negative side to it as well, and also centers dance as an important medium. It's not just about, hi, I'm an actor, hi, I'm a singer. It's, these are the people who need to be able to dance perfectly. And here are a couple of examples here. There's Dance 10 Looks 3, which is about getting plastic surgery to gain an edge in auditions. Content for language in that one. And then there's At the Ballet, which is about escaping sadness through watching the beauty of dance. Everything was beautiful at the ballet. Okay, thanks everybody. That's it for this one.